right, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukie Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website at www.milwaukieoregon.gov. You may locate them by navigating to the community calendar where tonight's meeting page is posted. If you have not reviewed the agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land, and let's please take a moment to respect their history. Okay, on to the minutes. There are no commission minutes for consideration this evening. Are there any informational items from staff?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you very much. Next on to the audience participation. This is an opportunity to comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Does any audience member wish to comment on an item that is not on tonight's commission agenda? All right, do we have anybody attending virtually? No, we do not. The next agenda item is a type 3 application for a new community service use to operate a K-12 public charter school in the business industrial zone. This is file number CSU 2026001. This item was continued from the May 12th meeting. The type 3 application for 5000 Southeast International Way is called to order. The applicant has the burden of proof of providing that the application is consistent with the city's zoning subdivision ordinance comprehensive plan, any applicable municipal code provision, and that the proposal conforms with the city's applicable criteria. I now ask staff to cite the zoning ordinance section or sections where the criteria can be found.
Sure. The proposal is subject to the following provisions of the Milwaukie Municipal Code, including MMC Section 19310, the Business Industrial Zone, MMC Section 19402, Natural Resources, MMC Section 19504, Site Design Standards, MMC Chapter 19600, Off-Street Parking and Loading, Chapter 19700, Public Facility Improvements, Chapter 19904, Community Service Uses, and finally, Chapter 191,006, Type 3 Review.
Thank you. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria. Failure to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail will allow a response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party with standing may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Persons with standing are those who submit comments or testify. If additional comments or documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension shall be subject to the limitations of the 120-day rule unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. Does any member of the commission wish to abstain from this hearing?
Yes, I would like to abstain.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest?
Yes, I am abstaining due to a conflict of interest. I am currently an employee of North Clackamas Schools.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Does any member of the commission wish to report on any ex parte contacts? Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to this hearing please raise their hand? Did any commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission? Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Let's proceed to the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Dyer, and I'm a senior planner here at the City of Milwaukee. I just want to start by thanking you all for coming and just pitch that we do this every other Tuesday. So we don't always get this type of crowd. So if you would like to come, we encourage that. So yeah, we are up and ready to go. Great. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, tonight we have an application for a new community service use, a school at the former Bob's Red Mill facility sites at 5000 Southeast International Way. You can see that the site is roughly 2 acres in size. The building itself is approximately 26,000 square feet. And it is developed, in addition to the building, with a surface parking lot that includes roughly 89 parking stalls, a loading dock, and 2 driveways to access the site along International Way. Next slide. The property is zoned business industrial. It's in our business industrial zone. In addition to the business industrial zone, there's a natural resource overlay that includes both habitat conservation area and also some identified water quality resources. To the south, below, it's bordered by Highway 224. There's some RMD, or moderate density residential zone. On the other side of Highway 224, and to the north, to the east, and to the west, those properties are also zoned business industrial. Next slide. So I just wanted to front load the conversation about the proposal and the approval criteria with just a little primer on the business industrial zone itself and specifically the use framework. So the purpose, starting with the purpose statement, the business industrial zone is adopted to implement the policies that we have in the comprehensive plan about industrial land uses. Where the comprehensive plan talks about promoting a mix of clean, employment-intensive, industrial, and office uses with associated services in locations that are supportive of mass transit and the regional transportation network. So within the business industrial zone, like I said, there are a few different types of uses that all are intended to be supportive of that purpose statement, starting with uses that are permitted by right. So those include manufacturing, printing, research laboratories, business and professional offices, warehousing and distribution, and contractors. I know that we've sort of been having conversations about the business industrial zone and the manufacturing zone and about those uses. So hopefully this won't sound too new to anybody here. I'm going to slide. So in addition to uses that are permitted by right, the business industrial zone also allows for accessory uses in conjunction with a use that is permitted by right. Those include, so some examples would include employee daycare, product showrooms, company gyms, things of this nature. It's not the primary use of the property, but it's supporting the primary use of the property. It also includes limited uses. So some examples of limited uses could be restaurants, office supply services, banks, financial institutions. These are intended to be uses that are supporting the primary uses of the district, but aren't the main focus of the zone itself. And as such, there's a sort of a size cap of 4,000 square feet or limited to 25% of the square footage of a building. In addition to accessory and limited uses, we allow for conditional uses subject to the conditional use process. And the next slide. Finally, we also allow for community service uses in the BI zone. And community service uses, just so that everyone is aware, are allowed in any zone per 19904 unless they're explicitly prohibited. But they do require this review so that we can identify if it's at an appropriate location and to also apply appropriate conditions to mitigate any sort of impacts that that use might have on adjacent properties. So with that, that setup, I will dive into the history of the Bob's Red Mill facility itself. So, you know, before 2000, when this facility was developed, the property was used as a parking lot, serving what is currently Dave's Killer Bread across the street today, which was at the time Bob's Red Mill. Around 2001, in the early 2000s, an application was submitted to the city to develop the existing facility today. It was a slightly smaller building at the time, roughly 15,000 square feet, but that it was expanded in 2013. There was an addition on the rear of the building to the commercial kitchen space and also to the sort of storage warehousing space. And then that finalized the existing structure itself, but in 2016, there was a conditional use application submitted to the city to reconfigure the limited restaurant use that was occurring at the property and the accessory retail use that was existing at the property. So there was the conditional use basically requested to, because there was a cap on how much the percentage and the square footage that the restaurant use could occupy, through the conditional use process, the code does allow you to increase that share of the property that's being used for that limited use, for that restaurant use. So that's what that 2016 conditional use was about. And then the property, unfortunately, Bob's Red Mill closed in February of 2025. So before you today, that's all the history of how the property has been used. And today you are being asked to consider an application for a new use, a school use. Clackamas Web Academy has submitted an application to the city. They are a public charter school. They're part of North Clackamas School District. They serve around 550 students in grades K through 12. And they have a hybrid model where they are serving students both online and also in person. So, you know, only a portion of those students, roughly 150, attend classes on site currently. I think there's an intention to grow that some over time. In terms of what they're thinking about for this building and what they're requesting, it does involve limited exterior modifications, new paint, new windows, a new playground, but outside of that, there's some interior remodeling, so new offices, classrooms, a new gymnasium. But outside of that, no changes. The general sort of operating characteristics of the use are similar to any other school, so 8 to 4. The one caveat there is just that, again, it is a hybrid school, so you know, not all of those 550 students are there at one time, and not more than that, I think not even all of those 150 that attend in person are there at one time. So I think they stagger based on, and the applicant can clarify if I'm misspeaking here, but I think they stagger based on grade, on which days our in-person offerings are available to you. Yeah, and in addition, let's see if there's anything else I didn't cover. Yeah, I think from an operational perspective, sort of the most concentrated periods of activity that staff identified would really occur sort of during student pickup and drop off. So that's not dissimilar from other schools, but that is, something that we definitely paid attention to in this process. Next slide, please. So new community service uses are required to satisfy five primary approval criteria in the code. Staff primarily focused on 2 through 5. So I'll kind of walk through, these are analyzed in the staff report in more detail, but just to generally summarize the staff report. Starting with number 2, so specific standards for the proposed use so the code includes not only these primary approval criteria for a community service use, but also specific criteria for specific types of community service uses. And in addition to schools, so that everyone's aware, community service uses might also include things like government buildings, utilities. It might include churches. So these are other types of communities serving institutions or organizations that, again, in theory, could be located anywhere subject to this review process. And in addition to these primary criteria, there are specific standards. So that's what number 2 is getting at. Number 3, the hours and levels of operation of the proposed use they need to be reasonably compatible with surrounding uses. Number 4, the public benefits of the proposed use are greater than the negative impacts, if any, on the neighborhood. And then finally, number 5, the location is appropriate for the type of use proposed. So when staff initially issued the staff report prior to the May 12th hearing, we looked at all of these, and 2 through 5 were where we could really, our recommendation, not to get too far ahead of the conclusion here, but is staff are coming in neutral to this application. We see compelling arguments, sort of both for but we also had some concerns about these specific approval criteria. Prior to posting that staff report before the May 12th hearing, there was not a lot of evidence in the record. There was not a lot of public testimony. And so, our I think, concerns were about, is a school an appropriate use for an industrial zone? Or, as the approval criteria here are suggesting, might there be a conflict in terms of hours of operation, expectations about what happens in an industrial zone? Might there be conflicts with adjacent properties that are operating in the zone as industrial businesses and are bringing to their operation a set of expectations? Following the publication of that staff report, and once the hearing was continued, we received a lot of additional testimony from adjacent property owners, in addition to folks in the school community, largely in support of the application, and specifically addressing these approval criteria and expressing that they did not see the issues from a compatibility standpoint. And in addition to that, we did receive one comment late today, that's included in your notes, in opposition, that does raise some concerns about whether or not the use can operate compatibly with surrounding properties. Let's go to the next slide, please. So again, in addition to those primary approval criteria, there's also some school-specific criteria. There are many of them. They're analyzed in more detail in the draft findings that were included in the packet. However, one stood out to staff that we considered for further analysis, and it was about the availability of, the code requires that there be adequate walkways both on-site and off-site. And while there are adequate facilities, definitely on site. And the frontage of the property itself along International Way is developed with a sidewalk, a vegetated buffer, and a bike lane. I think the larger corridor along International Way lacks some of those basic pedestrian facilities. I think the important thing to remember that was highlighted in the addendum that was posted to the staff report is that the approval criterion also mentions that, you know, those facilities need to be provided subject to the requirements of 19700. That's the public improvement chapter of the zoning code. It both establishes a legal basis for the city to require public improvements to public facilities through the redevelopment process. It also places limitations on what the city can require through that. And so I think upon further analysis, you know, staff identified that while International Way, you know, lacks some of these basic pedestrian facilities, it's, you know, it would be inappropriate or it wouldn't be proportionate to require the school to provide those facilities. Next slide, please. Yeah, in addition to the testimony that was included in the addendum to the staff report, more comments have come in, and even after this slide was created, more additional testimony has come in. But this is just a summary of the additional testimony and also some additional materials. We received market analysis and also an architectural analysis of the site, which, yeah, has all been provided to you. Last slide. Yeah, I just wanted to provide some, a map just showing sort of, you know, like I said, we did receive comments from multiple businesses in the BI zone, and just to offer a little bit of perspective about where some of those comments were coming from. So just the properties highlighted here, the property outlined in red is the project site, and properties colored in beige or brown are where we received public comments from adjacent businesses. Like I said, in addition, we did receive a comment sort of last minute from Dave's Killer Bread, which is located just north of the project site. So, as I said, staff have come in neutral to this application. We don't have a recommendation. We're looking for some direction from the Planning Commission. We have provided a set of draft findings that address, you know, where we believe the application meets the criteria. We've gone ahead and drafted those, written those in. But as you saw in attachment 1 to the staff report, where we have, you know, concerns or things were less clear, we left those blank. So we're looking for some direction from Planning Commission to help us write findings for those approval criteria. And I just wanted to note that the 120-day deadline for the application is July 7th. We will be receiving a 120-day waiver to that deadline. Cool. Open for questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Are there any clarifying questions for staff from the commissioners? All right. Well, I know the answer to the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Do we have a complete list of all the CSUs in the BI today, or is this going to be the first one?
I believe this would be the first CSU. We have conditional uses, at least one that's top of mind, but I believe this would be the first community service use application in the BI zone.
Okay. Would this proposal trigger any SDCs, or because it's a public organization, there's no SDCs tied to it?
I'll let Vera weigh in.
Yeah, SDCs haven't been calculated yet. That would be part of whatever permitting process happens for any of the work. But we haven't received an SDC estimate or anything like that from engineering. I think once we get into the change of use and, you know, what's happening through the building permit process, those would get assessed. But I don't have that answer for you
Okay.
tonight.
But the type of organization, I guess, wouldn't matter in that situation. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Looking at 19904.7, the specific standards for schools, have staff kind of gone through each of these criteria and landed on a position of whether they are or not being met?
The specific yeah, 19947.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the draft findings do include
Okay.
findings for all but the on and off-site walkways standard.
And the bicycle facilities?
Yes.
Standard? Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the meeting packet?
Yes. Yes, we have. Yeah, we've received multiple comments the past few days over the weekend, including multiple comments coming in sort of afternoon today. Those have all been sent to the commission, though.
So is there not a requirement to read those into the record this time?
I don't know that we need to read all of them into the
Okay,
record.
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure. All right. All other items will be summarized and identified, you know, like within the report, as you mentioned there. We were provided those within the packet. Would the applicant or their representative like to comment?
Yes. Do a presentation for you. Good evening, Chair Gertrude. Is this on? Perfect. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Chair Gertrude and members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Keenan Orton-Bacallion. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm Jordan Ramus PC. I'm on the sign-in sheet, but my address is 1211 Southwest Fifth Ave, Suite 2700, Portland, Oregon. Appearing tonight on behalf of the applicant, Clackamas Web Academy, who's seeking approval of the community service use that Ryan just detailed before you. With me tonight is Brad Lynn. He is the CWA principal. Brian Mares with Scott Edwards Architecture. Melissa Slopemaker with AKS Engineering. And we also have her colleague, Nick Messler, who's our traffic engineer. He's in the audience, but he's also available for questions. We also have Reese Conrad in the audience. He is our primary broker with McAdam Forbes. And also on the applicant team tonight is Garrett Stevenson, land use attorney with Schwabe, Williamson & Wyatt, who is appearing on behalf of Bob's Red Mill. Before I want to turn things over to Brad for our presentation, I do want to kind of detail some of the background of this application. And I also want to thank Ryan and Vera and the rest of staff for all of your hard work and collaboration on this. It's been a very iterative process over a period of 6 months, so that certainly doesn't go unnoticed, and we're very appreciative. Like I mentioned, we initially submitted this application before you at the beginning of the year. The last 6 months have been a lot of back and forth, collaboration, scoping, interfacing with staff on more of the technical aspects of the application, and developing the record, which you have before you here tonight. And I must say that I think the record is very well and truly developed, as are the staff report and the addendum to said staff report. Since the release of the initial staff report in May, we've also worked with staff to come through some of the updates that Ryan mentioned in the addendum. Those take into account new information, public comments, all but the one we received at 4 p.m. being supportive, and also new information submitted by the applicant team that has been synthesized and set forth in the addendum to those approval criteria. To that end, we'd like to state for the record that we agree with the recommendations of the staff report that was released last week on June 4th. And considering there's no opposition to the application until 4 p.m. today, and that we are of the same mindset of staff that the approval criteria are met based on the conclusions in the addendum, we were originally appearing before you today to ask for you to approve the application. That being said, as you're aware, we received a comment at 4 requesting the record be held open for 7 days. So at this point, we're not in a position to deliberate to a decision tonight. Although we've been speaking with Dave's Killer Bread, and I'm just going to state this for the record, we were not aware until we received that comment that they were formally opposed or had questions regarding the application. We had several informal discussions with them. They raised some questions about traffic impacts. We provided responses, and until 4 p.m. today, we haven't heard anything. So that's important for 2 reasons. First and foremost, again, we're looking at a continuance here. But beyond that, we haven't had an appropriate and adequate amount of time to synthesize what is in that 6-page letter. I have skimmed it. I will note that the majority of comments there are either addressed in the staff report or the application materials, refer to criteria that are not applicable to the application, or address criteria that, not to sound repetitive here, but have been questioned by staff and since the new evidence has come in, have been responded to in the addendum in an appropriate fashion. I'm going to speak a little bit more about the approval criteria later in today's presentation. It's also my understanding in speaking with your council that we will have a period after public comment to discuss timing about when we're going to return to the Planning Commission hearing. I think with that, I'm really just going to turn it over to Brad and the rest of our team. We have a really good presentation for you guys today, and we're very excited about this. So again, I guess we'll leave you with this. Notwithstanding the request for a continuance, we do support staff's recommendations and conclusions in the staff report. We do urge you to approve this application because, as you will see, we believe all the approval criteria are met. So thank you. With that, turn it over to Brad.
Good evening. Members of the Milwaukie Planning Commission, Chair, Vice Chair, City staff, thank you for hosting this session. My name is Brad Lynn. I'm the principal of the Clackamas Web Academy. A little bit about our school. We are a blended charter school that's sponsored by the North Clackamas School District. We support student learning K-12. And we do so in a unique fashion. I mentioned blended, where kids can access their core content and all their core classes online. But there is a commitment by our teachers that we recognize that teaching and learning is very social. So we try to create moments online and on site where we can bring kids together in community to share their learning and to grow together. Hence the reason why we've moved to that blended learning model. In terms of student enrollment overall, it was mentioned that we have about 550. It's actually now about 560. But we have most of our students that are positioned in our high school model and early college options program. So we have about 340 students in our grade 9-12 program, and then 220 students in our elementary and middle school programs. I'm referring to our mission statement that you can see kind of off in the corner of the slide, where it talks about our wanting to honor and support the cultures and values and goals of all students while challenging and empowering them to reach their full potential. A move that we make as a school that is pretty unique from other schools is, in order to achieve that goal, we choose to partner with our students' families, and we do so in a very deliberate way. So you can see this kind of 3-pronged approach to teaching, and that icon in the left-hand corner. We've created an advisory model where each student is assigned a staff member in our school, and bi-monthly that staff member is committed to meet with the child and to meet with their family on a regular basis. And we make that move and we go to those links to help support our kids, because we believe if we can make alliances with the family, that in terms of understanding the cultures and values and goals, which are listed in the mission, we're able to do that. And then also, if we're talking about stretching students, challenging students to reach their full potential, again, by aligning with their families, we believe we can establish trust to help move kids along in a way that maybe by themselves they wouldn't go. So we get asked a lot, is the model effective? Are kids successful in your school? Well, we're proud of these metrics that I'm sharing with you today. You can see our graduation rates, on-time graduation rates are as high, if not higher than the state averages. I'm really proud of the graduating class of 2026, which I had the honor to work and celebrate with them in their graduation last week. We had 83 student members total, and collectively they had donated over 3,300 hours to service learning projects across the state of Oregon, partnering up with nonprofit organizations just to make the community in which they live in a little bit better. They also collectively earned over 2,600 college credits through our partnerships with Clackamas Community College, Mount Hood Community College, Portland Community College, and the Oregon Institute of Technology. We're really proud of the fact that we had 5 students that earned the Oregon State Seal by literacy. And one fun fact too, that not a lot of people know, that small class, 83 students, but we had 2 students recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Program that scored in the top 3%. One was recommended to commended status, the other semifinalist status, which we're really proud of. And so if you're committed to creating partnership or committed to creating really cool, engaging learning opportunities online and on site in your charter school, you better have good partnerships in the work. And if you were to walk into our current site and walk into our high school wing of our building, you would see on one of the walls, we celebrate the partners that we work with to support student learning in our school. And featured on the wall, you'll see the North Clackamas School District, which has a strong presence in this community. And you would also see Bob's Red Mill, which has also had a strong presence in this community. And oftentimes people go, well, after CWA, what do your students do? Where do they go? Well, I'm proud to say in gathering data, looking at the students who have graduated from our program, a lot of our alumni have attended some really prestigious universities, colleges, and institutions. And this is another wall in our college or our high school wing where we honor our students when they leave our program and go on and choose university. So why the current site at 5,000 Southeast International Way? Well, I can tell you at the beginning that wasn't a targeted place that we wanted to go. I know we set some criteria with our realtor that we wanted to find a space that would keep us in the North Clackamas School District, close to our sponsoring school district. And just so happens when you look at Bob's Red Mill and right across the way, the executive offices of the North Clackamas School District are right there, which is very convenient. We also set out to look at a place that would be close to some of our partners. And you saw in our partnership slide or you might have saw on our partnership slide that Clackamas Community College was listed up there. Well, Harmony Campus from that location is 1.6 miles away from Bob's Red Mill. And we have several students that are accessing college classes just at that site alone. So very convenient. Our sister charter school is Clackamas Middle College. And if you do a Google Map search from Bob's Red Mill, that current site, to Clackamas Middle College, which is our sister's charter school, that's 2 miles away. So that location, also centrally located in the North Clackamas School District, is convenient for so many reasons. And not to mention, just for sustained growth, our school in the next 5 years is targeted to grow by 90 additional students. And over time, we just feel like that building is something that we might be small moving in it initially, but over time we could fill it strategically and make that a permanent home for CWA. And just to give some ethos or, I wanted to make sure that you could see, if that gold star is the current site at 5,000 International Way, which is the Bob's Red Mill site, our partnerships, which we work very closely aligned to, again, is that 2 mile radius. You can see geographically how that's positioned with some of the folks that we work with regularly.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the council. My name is Brian Mars. I'm one of the partners at Scott Edwards Architecture. We're a 100-person design firm here in Portland. And we really are happy to be here to discuss why we feel like this is an exciting property for Brad and the school district. I'm going to try to paint a picture, but I think, Ryan, you've already done a great job with the existing conditions. You've got an existing building that's about 26,000 square feet with all of the pedestrian amenities to the north. What I really want to point out is the two driveway access entrances on the northwest and northeast. I believe Melissa's going to talk about how appropriate those driveway entrances are for the property and the queuing. We have 96 existing parking spaces that work really, really well for the school. And one of the things that I want to point out, and I want to talk about this evening, is the site infrastructure and the building infrastructure and how it lends itself to the school more so than it would an industrial property. Okay, so with this slide, you can see on the right, we do have a loading area and a loading dock that's existing from the Bob's Red Mill. But the circulation needed for any commercial vehicle is really pressed with the parking the way that it is. We have to the west of this building a new fenced play area for all the kindergarten students to meet all of the state requirements for outdoor play areas. It works really well with the layout of the interior. And I think as Ryan discussed earlier, our plan is to leave the building as much as it is today, right? We feel like it's a very iconic building for Milwaukee. Everybody knows about it. And why not give that back to the community in a school use? So what you can see here is I'm going to go into the inside of the building just so you can see how well this lays out. You can see the yellow circled area is the entrance. That is the existing entrance for Bob's Red Mill. That will remain the existing entrance to the building, okay? When you look at the plan from left to right, there's 3 distinct bays in Bob's Red Mill. I think everybody's probably very familiar with it. But those column bays, let's talk about the very top column bay in the plan where you have classrooms, excuse me, classrooms 1 and 2. These column bays are on 20-foot grid lines, right? So you have a column every 20 feet on square. That is a very difficult infrastructure for a modern industrial use. But when I got the call from Brad and Reese and I walked into this building, I looked at them immediately and said, this is going to work perfectly. It lays out perfectly for the classroom use with that base structure. And you can see that without much modification to the interior of that building, we can accommodate the 9 to 10 classrooms that they need for their future growth, okay? Down through the middle, most of you are probably very familiar with Bob's Red Mill, but that is the blue dashed line. That ends up remaining just the same, and it's aligned with the clear story of Bob's Red Mill. The higher portion of that building bringing natural light into what would be the corridor for the classrooms and where all the kids can hang out, right? That is about a 14-foot wide hallway, which is very perfect for the amount of students that we're talking about. And then in the lower bay of the classrooms, where the Bob's Red Mill kitchen was, is also 20-foot grid lines for column spacing, working really well for the middle school and high school classrooms. To the east, where it was Bob's Red Mill storage, we have an opportunity to put a gymnasium and a basketball court. It is the perfect size for a high school basketball court, which is amazing for them. And that is a new feature for the school, which they do not have today. On the upper floor, what you see is right now, the infrastructure that is circled is the stairways that Bob's Red Mill has. The way that that is spaced within the building allows for really easy access up and down from the teachers down to the classrooms, and creates a really easy circulation through the school, providing with the infrastructure the way that it is, we have the adequate offices without adding anything onto the building at this point. Yep.
Hi, my name is Melissa Slotemaker. I'm with AKS Engineering and helping with the land use portion of this application. I'm going to touch on just the first few of the criteria. I know staff did a really good job going through it. And then Keenan will take over the second half. But again, we just want to remind the commission that, schools are permitted or through the community service use application process. And so walking through each of the criteria, the business industrial zone specifically does allow community service uses. There are some zones, like manufactured zone, that prohibits schools, my understanding, but the business industrial zone is not one of them. So schools are permitted. It's also worth noting that, trade schools are an outright permitted use within the BI zone. So it's not too dissimilar from this type of school use. And then I just want to highlight the development standards. We go into them in a lot of detail in the narrative to demonstrate how the business industrial zone standards are met. And as Brian had emphasized, very minor site and building changes are really needed for this new use. And then specifically for school use, as you saw on the site plan earlier, there are, and in the narrative, there are specific code standards for play area, public facilities, which is streets and utilities, safe ingress and egress, parking, setbacks, bike facilities and landscaping, and those are all met. And again, I know walkways came up. We just highlight that as they are provided throughout the site and along the entire frontage. And the specific code standard that's referenced, section 19700, does not require off-site sidewalks or walkways. So we just wanted to highlight that again. So I will hand it over to Keenan.
Perfect. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, so just kind of running back to what Ryan said earlier in his staff report, he noted that when staff was looking at this application, these final 3 approval criteria were really the ones that he was looking at most closely, which is why I'm going to address them. So I guess the first one we're talking about here is hours and levels of operation. Are they reasonably compatible with surrounding uses, right? In this case, as noted by the voluminous amount of public comments we've received, the proposed use is generally consistent with not only the hours of operation, but also the surrounding uses themselves. They have commented and said as much. In terms of the traffic and other operational characteristics of the use, those have all been fully analyzed both in the staff report as well as by our own traffic engineer and the applicant team throughout the project narrative. With the mitigation measures proposed, the on-site queuing plan, the staff-led queuing organization, which I'll speak about a little bit more, there is effectively no concern that there will be any sort of spillover onto International Way, any negative interactions between existing traffic and the proposed traffic generated by the site. Importantly, I think this is again reinforced by the comments of our surrounding neighbors who have said as much. They have reviewed the application. They do not have concerns in regard to that. In terms of the evidence in the record, I think the traffic report is incredibly important here. Again, we have Nick Massler with AKS available during question time if you'd like to get into more of the specifics of the report. But one thing I will note that just really jumped out at me from the outset is that the trip generation for this proposed use is significantly lower than that at the Bob's Red Mill. So in terms of the overall average daily trips during a weekday, there will be significantly less traffic generated by this use. There will also be less AM peak hour generation and a slight increase in PM peak hour generation when we're talking about pickup for school. But again, that has been planned for, reviewed by the city's own traffic engineer as well as ours, and that's where the queuing plan and on-site mitigation measures came from. And those are things that are conditioned on this application. So were you to grant an approval, we would have to implement those, and we would happily do so. Go forward to the, yeah, so this is the circulation and queuing diagram. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds in this. Again, all the materials are there in the application, but something I would like to note is just generally the operational plan for on-site queuing. Not only will we have a specific ingress and egress for the queuing plan, but we will also have CWA staff on site during pickup and drop off to monitor all on-site operations to make sure that the queuing is going effective. If the queuing lines become too long, we have ample on-site storage. I want to say it's 89 parking stalls we have there right now where we can park vehicles so they are not sitting in that queuing line and spilling out over onto International Way. I mean, I don't want to get too granular with this, but I think that really is one thing that has kind of come up as one of the primary concerns from the only comment we've received. And this is something we have been very aware of as a staff. We have reviewed it and we've come up with mitigation measures that we are very confident will be successful here. Next standard I want to focus on here is the public benefits and negative impact standard. And this is something that I think Ryan did a very good job of in the staff report in terms of analyzing exactly what the criteria is here. Again, from our position, there are no negative impacts on the neighborhood. We have many neighbors saying as much. We have not identified any impacts from our technical studies or reports that would say that, look, there's going to be negative impacts on the surrounding area. That being said, again, there's the public benefit prong here. So to the extent there was to be a negative impact, so long as the public benefit outweighs that impact, this criterion is again met. So from the outset, we believe there are no negative impacts. But if there were to be negative impacts, we believe the public benefits that Brad detailed for the school far outweigh any sort of negative impacts that could be available here. As mentioned previously, again, you've got surrounding businesses and property owners. You also have the Lake Road Neighborhood Association that supports this application. So they have reviewed this and also deems they do not foresee any negative impacts. Second, in terms of the public benefits with the use, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more about this from the public, so I'm going to just be brief here. But again, CWA provides a tangible benefit through its offering of a flexible learning program option for Milwaukie families whose children may not have learning styles that are conducive to a traditional public school environment. That's something that's already been detailed in the written notes, and I'm sure, again, you're going to hear about that, but that's really important because that is a public benefit to the school that may not be offered by a traditional education program. Secondarily, securing the long-term future of CWA through this application will ensure that the school remains in the North Clackamas School District and the attendant tax benefits that the city and the district currently derive. Without this application being approved, CWA's current site is under lease. So that's a situation where there is no permanence, there's no certainty it will remain in the community, and that benefit, which although it may exist now, may dissipate in the future. So again, this application is very important for certainty. Based on the lack of identified negative impacts, any sort of evidence in the record that would suggest there would be impacts and the clear public benefits, we believe this criterion is again met. So turning to the last one. The location is appropriate for the use. So you've heard this from Melissa already. It's important to keep in mind that community service uses are allowed uses through all of the city's zones, including the business industrial zone. In addition, the nature of CWA's academic curriculum is similar to that of a trade school, which I think is a really important distinction. That's why I'm hitting on this again, is that is an allowed outright use in the business industrial zone. And a lot of the programming and educational opportunities that CWA provides are very similar to a trade school. So in terms of what the zoning code is already contemplating and whether this location is appropriate for the use, I believe that is an important factor to consider when reviewing this criterion. I think Mr. Mayers did a very good job on speaking to the architectural specifics of the structure and the surrounding area, the existing site conditions, and why those are conducive for a school use and may not be necessarily conducive to an industrial user coming in. It's my understanding that Bob's is going to speak to kind of just the nature of their use as well too, so I'll leave that to Mr. Stevenson. But I think that it's very important to understand that this site, although not shovel ready, is very easily repurposed into a school, whereas a traditional industrial user coming in would be very difficult to take this structure and the existing conditions and effectively just turn them into a school or a industrial use. Finally, the location of the site is very important. There's easy access to Highway 224. Again, our traffic engineer as well as the cities have not identified any traffic impacts that would mean that the school would be unable to serve its intended use. The surrounding area, the Clackamas Middle College and the other CWA partnerships were detailed on that map. They effectively triangulate this subject property. So again, from a locational standpoint, this is a very appropriate location for the proposed use before you today. For those reasons, I believe that that criterion is also met. Now I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Stevenson. He's going to have some specific comments. Again, he is here on behalf of Bob's Red Mill, the current property owner. And so yeah, the floor is yours, Gary.
Thanks, Keenan. And I confess, I feel like I've just been bumped up to the grown-ups table here, so bear with me. I don't have a whole lot to add to Keenan and his team's very good presentation here. The one thing that I came into this project really looking for is to make sure that once we sort of cut away the concerns about industrial lands, that we have an approval application. I believe we do. And the reason why I want to speak about that briefly is because in some of the original iterations of the staff report and some of the initial comments, I think there was a concern, or at least I got the sense that there was a concern that this was a conversion of industrial land to something other than that. And that's not what this is. In Milwaukie, you have an interesting, but I think a very effective code that allows for this type of use in any zone, which makes sense, right? When you have the opportunity to bring a school in like this, you want to be able to have that flexibility. And so you have this special use category for community service uses, and the use requirements and the criteria are the same no matter which zone you go into, as far as I know. And so what this is, and I want to be really, really clear, because you may hear some conversations that lead you away from the centrality of the issue. But what this is this is a question of whether this particular conversion of an existing building is appropriate given the facts in front of you. And what the staff report, particularly the staff report with the addenda, which I hope you have read, really emphasizes that, you know what, when we look at this, what do we see? We see a lack of any evidence suggesting that this is going to conflict with the existing uses. We see a number of folks who own and operate businesses in this BI zone in the area come forward and say, we have no problem with this. We see a traffic report, and I read it, it says you're going to get a weekly reduction of almost 1,000 trips from a conversion from a retail building to this particular school. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to encourage this planning commission to do is focus on those criteria and understand that you're charged with making a decision based on the evidence. One of my concerns, frankly, was that when we brought things like, is this what the BI zone is intended for, into the conversation, is that could confuse the issue. And that's why I think it's important for me to mention that that is not what the criteria ask us to look at. And that is why in your code, you can establish a community service use in basically any zone as long as it meets those criteria. And I think that the staff work in their addendum did a very, very good job of clarifying that. So I was very happy to see that. Now, as to whether or not this is going to be compatible with existing uses, again, bear in mind that we're effectively taking a retail use and converting it over to a public charter school use. And what that means from a traffic standpoint is that you're going from essentially one number of trip generation per day, average daily trips, and then you can divide those into PM peak and AM peak, and you're taking those down to what a school would generate. And the traffic study did a really, really good job of examining that. And so what I think most people are worried about when you have a different type of use coming in than you're used to is what's the nature of the traffic generation going to be? This is going to generate less traffic than the current store does. And so I think that on that basis alone, there's no evidence to suggest that this use could be incompatible with the surrounding uses. And that's backed up by at least 3 letters of support. I don't know if you had the time to read them. I did read them. But we have comments from Ron Frederick from ATEMP HVAC, who says that I believe the approval of the application represents a public benefit and will not negatively impact the surrounding businesses in any way. Pacific Northwest Properties, who own the Milwaukie Business Park, the Menthorne Business Park, and the Highway 224 Business Park, we do not anticipate the proposed use interfering with the operation of our properties in any way. Day Wireless also submitted a comment, says less traffic than the prior use. So that's kind of giving you a flavor about what the more reasonable folks in the neighborhood are saying. Having done this job for a while, it is very rare that you get an application with this much unified support between the businesses and the neighborhood association. And frankly, I think that your staff, even though they're neutral on this, their conclusions, I believe, in their staff report is that we meet the criteria with the conditions of approval recommended. So as far as Bob's Red Mill is concerned, this property went on the market in February of last year. It's taken this long to get a deal this far. And the reason why that is that this building was never designed to be an industrial building. And you've got a bunch of folks on this side of the table, the grown-up side, that know a heck of a lot about this stuff. And one of my former colleagues in the back there, Reese Conrad, knows a heck of a lot about this stuff. And what my limited experience is in dealing with industrial buildings is you need a couple things. You need to be able to get all the way around the building with a truck. You can't do it with this building. You need to have lots of truck access, in other words, loading docks that have a lot of clear space behind them so that when they unload, you've got room to move those goods around. As far as I know, there's one, maybe two loading docks here. And then you want that building situated in the center of the site, again, so you can move trucks and those sorts of things around. This building has none of those characteristics. And so it is frankly a difficult building to market for an industrial use, be that light industrial, heavy industrial, any other kind. It has never been used as a distribution center. It's been used to do three things: store product that is going to be sold at the old store. It has been used to turn that product into food, which was sold there. And frankly, from what I gather from learning more about this facility, is it really was a community center in a lot of ways. And so, I mean, given that that's the case, what a great opportunity to have a school like Clackamas Web Academy come in, who can take a building that was very much purpose-built for exactly what Bob's Red Mill was doing with it, a building that probably wouldn't work for just about anybody, and they're saying this is perfect. And not only are they saying that this is perfect, but they're saying we're going to bring a public charter school to you with all of those different commercial relationships that those students are going to be able to lever going forward. And I mean, I think that this is a great opportunity for Bob's Red Mill. I think it's a great opportunity for the city. I hope that you approve the application, and I really do appreciate your attention tonight, but I also want to acknowledge the work that Ryan and Vera and Justin put in to getting this where we think it needs to be. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And if you have a question that is hard for me, I'm going to make sure Keenan answers it.
Thanks, Garrett. Okay, so just going to recap here really quickly, because I think we've pretty much hashed this one out for you. I think the decision is very apparent in front of you. The information is on the table at this point. So it's up for you to interpret it how you may. But in terms of the conditions that staff has proposed, again, applicant is willing to accept all those conditions of approval. I think a lot of this goes to mitigating, traffic impacts, downside queuing, et cetera. But we have no concerns with those conditions. We fully agree with the staff report as addended on June 4th and the conclusions therein. So truly, absent the request for a continuance, we were prepared to request that you guys accept the staff report as a decision today and draft findings accordingly. So in terms of conditions, I'm happy to answer questions on any of those specific conditions, but again, we will accept them. I will note there is one condition that Ryan included in the addenda regarding a non-remonstrance agreement. The one comment we did receive kind of spoke to, impacts attendant to the business industrial zone, noise, odors, et cetera. The effect of that agreement would be it's effectively a covenant not to sue. So we would agree, under that covenant that were there to be any sort of impacts attendant to an industrial use, that we would have no issue with those and we would not bring any sort of litigation in regard to those. I think just stepping back a little bit towards what Garrett said, I want to make sure that we're not misconstruing the business industrial zone to be a heavy manufacturing zone, right? There are some manufacturing, food-related manufacturing uses in this zone. There's also a lot of retail commercial. We've got a brewery there. We had the Bob's Red Mill store. I believe even Dave's Killer Bread has a retail component to it. So not minimizing the impacts of the business industrial zone, but I think it's just important to keep front and center in mind exactly what kind of zone we're talking about here. Beyond that, again, just as Mr. Stevenson noted, the purpose of the business industrial zone, industrial inventories, those are not necessarily pertinent to the approval criteria for community service use, which is allowed in any zone across the city. There are specific criteria for community service uses that we must meet. And, we've taken our time walking through why we think we meet those. So, to keep this short, for the foregoing reasons, we really appreciate your time tonight, as well as staff's again. We would really respectfully request that you approve this application consistent with the staff report and the draft findings. At this time, we're happy to take any questions. I understand, again, we'll be talking about when we're coming back here again. But yeah, we're prepared to answer any questions at this time, or if you want to take public comments, your decision, Chair.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the testimony from all of you here, and I appreciate the time you've taken. You're clearly very deliberate in your thought process, and I think you got across, your opinions quite clearly, and I do appreciate your time very much in presenting that to us. At this time, I do want to ask if there's any commissioners that have questions for the applicants. I do have a question. I just want to get a little bit of clarification about, the use as a school, and there's kind of been this discussion as, kind of seeing it as like a trade school. I definitely see that in the idea of like the high school level, and even some of the middle school level, since some of those middle school students are getting high school credit. And you're saying that there's about, I think you said approximately 350 in the high school age and kind of 250 in the middle school and below. And then I've also heard the number that approximately 150 of the students total will participate in on-site activities. How many of those 150 students are in the high school level? How many of those are in the grade school level? I'm just a little bit curious about that so I can understand the intensive, kind of just the age of the students that would be using the facilities on site.
Sure, and I think in the application, we had kind of I think an attendance chart that showed daily when kids come in. But you're right, we have about 340 students that are currently enrolled in our high school program. 90 of those students are full-time college students and are there most of the time and will come in once a month for different meetings. But in terms of regular classes that are taught on site, currently right now our schedule has students grades K through 5 coming in Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the AM block, so 8 to 4. And there's about 90 students that are enrolled there. We also have, at our middle school level, classes offered at that same time. And there's about 125, 130 students enrolled there. But not all of them come in at once. If you look at the attendance charts, some of our kids, because of the individual education plan that we've set up with them, won't participate in on-site classes. So when it says 150, that is a peak hour when all those kids, even though the number is bigger in terms of total enrollment, that is the peak number of kids that will attend all classes during a set block time. At the high school level, our students meet Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, and you'll notice there's a little bit of a stagger there because our facility only can handle so many people at once. And so we're maximizing classes the entire week. And we have groups of kids coming in at different opportunities. So our high school kids come in Monday, Thursdays. And when they come in, it's mostly 9th and 10th graders that are participating in those classes. And we have probably 70 students, 80 students that participate in those sections.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do remember looking at those numbers, but I think hearing that kind of simplified is very helpful. One other question would be, let's see, that I had related to that. With kids coming to the site, it seems as though and I've looked at, the requirements that you would have for monitoring the queuing and making sure that process is moving smoothly as expected. But do you anticipate the vast majority of students who are coming to the site being dropped off? It sounds like that is the primary goal, that there won't be, kids arriving.
Yes, currently right now, if you were to visit school at CWA, all of our students are dropped off and then our parents vacate the premises, they leave, yeah. And so we have a drop-off process that's supported at our school.
Okay. Thank you. Is there
Chair,
any questions?
just one clarification too. I just want to be very clear. When I mentioned that this is akin to a trade school, we're not applying for a trade school in particular.
I understand that.
Yeah, I think that's just really important to notice the distinctions, but it's also the reason I brought it up is because the operations are so similar, and that is an allowed outright use in the BI zone. And then I guess as for Brad's comments about pickup and drop off, those are all conditioned. We'll make sure that there's CWI staff on site monitoring queuing, monitoring pickup and drop off. And to the extent there was to be any sort of hint of a spillover, which only appeared in the 99th percentile of our traffic modeling, we have on-site capacity and storage to put those folks on site so they're not spilling out onto the roadways. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Maybe just a follow-up question on that. And about that 99th percentile, was that also kind of including the forecasted growth that the principal was talking about earlier, or was that modeled off of like current enrollment numbers?
That's a really good question. I don't want to say the wrong thing here, so Nick, you're up here. I believe it was, but I defer to our traffic engineer on that. Thank you, Commissioner Sherman.
So I believe the question was in regard to 95th percentile queuing, is that correct?
Yeah, probably more queuing based off of current enrollment numbers versus projected future growth.
Understood. It's actually twofold. At the request of city planning staff, the analysis was conducted for full enrollment in the future. When the school opens, it's anticipated it would not be at that current level. And in addition to that, it was anticipating that you'd have a full student body cohort visiting the site for any of those given time periods. Thank you. Of course.
So Nick, just to clarify real quickly, when you say full student body cohort, you don't mean just the 150 students that are appearing in person, or is that?
It's those 150.
Those 150, okay. But those are split up during different bell schedules, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Any other questions from commissioners to the applicant? All right. Well, normally I ask the question, are there folks here to testify and wait for the answer, but I know the answer to that. So we do have folks who are here to testify. My understanding is I'm going to be reading in the order in which they've been presented to me. Thank you very much for answering our questions. So now we're going to move on to public comment on this, and I'm just going to go in order. The one on top I have here. And also, when you come to speak, please clearly state your name and your city of residence. We don't need your full address, but your city of residence. We'll start with Trey Winthrop. I believe. Winthrop.
I'm Trey Winthrop, and I live in Damascus, Oregon. I wanted to thank the chair, the vice chair, the planning commission. I am the CEO of Bob's Red Mill. I have worked at Bob's Red Mill for 21 years, and I had a chance to work with Bob for 18 years before he passed a few years ago. So I know a lot of the history. It was really great to see the history of the store. I was there during part of that. We have been part of the Milwaukie community for almost 50 years. We were founded in 1978, and we've employed thousands of people. We support the community through donations and lots of great things. We're very proud to have Milwaukie be our home. When we tell people Milwaukie, and they're like, "Is that near? Where is that?" And we're like, "It's in Oregon," and it's a really great thing. Seeing what the potential is. For this school in this building. It just brought me joy. It reminds me of having lunch with Bob in the restaurant and just the community that we had. And the store and cafe was really built for community, to bring people together through food. And I just wanted to let you know how proud I would be, and how I think Bob would be if you guys voted yes on this. So just wanted to take a few minutes and let you know what we're thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have Garrett Stevenson. If you have additional.
Well, I don't, but I apologize for giving you that slip. I was told that everybody has to put in a slip. And so I did. But
Understood,
thank you for the
understood.
opportunity.
Thank you for following the rules. Next, we have David Boyer.
Good evening. David Boyer. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm an attorney at Snell Wilmer, and I'm here on behalf of Dave's Killer Bread. As many of you probably know, Dave's is headquartered directly across the street from this site. They've been there for nearly 20 years and plan on being there for many years to come. I want to be clear before I make further statements that Dave's supports the applicant's mission. And we recognize the importance of having schools. With that said, we have certain concerns, specifically with regard to safety, compatibility, and appropriateness of location. The school says that there's about 150, 160 students that come on site every day. There's also plans for them to have continued growth. There is also, I believe, over 500 students that are part of the school. So we have concerns over this siting, and when we talk about traffic studies and people coming on, is what happens if that student population increases? Out of all those 500 students, are more that are already part of the school going to continue to come on site? That's a consideration that I don't think has necessarily been addressed. And what happens if that changes? And not necessarily next year, but 5 years from now. What does that look like for the site specifically and the requirements that it must fulfill as far as specific pupils per their acreage and meeting the actual criteria, but just for traffic and otherwise. So that's one sort of concern we're thinking about, not just for tomorrow, but continued into the future. Big picture, we're also talking about having young children in an industrial area and kind of creating this community space people are talking about. I think some of the concerns have been raised already, and I would just sort of put that question to everyone as to how they're going to be adequately addressed, right? There's a sidewalk directly in front of the site, nowhere else. Is there adequate access for bikes? We're about to increase pedestrian use here by a great deal. And we're going to have a lot more children on site. So we're just concerned with what that looks like when you have not only daily use, but 365 days, 24 hours of semi-trucks coming in and out of the entire industrial zone. Not to mention just from Dave's, which is directly across the street. There's dozens of semi-trailer trucks that come in and out of that site every day, 24 hours a day. Right now, there's been talk about a lot of the sort of operational characteristics of the site. And while it may be true that it is less conducive to some uses than others, the uses over the years have been, this is an industrial zone. The operational characteristics of the school are fundamentally different. And I think that's just from a safety, compatibility and appropriateness, just a concern. Increased pedestrians, increased school children, bike, not to mention any potential future community uses that are after hours. I don't think that has been something that has been talked about, but because I think that future use is maybe undecided at this point. What does it look like when the school is opened up to the community in the evenings and weekends, again, in an active industrial site? So considerations and considering what that looks like and what type of guardrails need to be included so that the use is compatible for everybody is something we really want everyone to consider. In short, I think it's the review mechanisms for growth. What I talked about before. What happens if not only is the student population going to grow over time, which I think everyone acknowledges is part of it, but what if student population on site increases just because more students want to come on site? I don't know how the school operates currently and what that looks like if students want to do that, but I presume that that is a right of every student. Again, safety concerns with connectivity. I think everyone kind of has heard what those issues are. Not enough bike lanes, not enough safe pathways. This is now a school and a community meeting spot. So what does that look like when you're going through an active industrial zone? We want to just ensure that outdoor activities for students are conducted in a safe manner. We want to make sure that they're managed and that the increases over time are considered, especially if the school intends to be here for a long time to come, which is most people's intention. What does this look like in its first year in place? What does this look like 5 years from now? What does this look like 10 years from now? Appreciate everyone's hearing our concerns. Again, I want to make it clear that Dave's has no intention of, we have no disbelief in the mission of the school. In fact, we encourage it, we appreciate it. We just have concerns over its compatibility and what this looks like in the future in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Representative April Dobson.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is April Dobson. I am the state representative for House District 39, which includes Happy Valley, North Clackamas County, and the eastern edge of Milwaukie. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of Clackamas Web Academy's application. I want to focus my brief remarks on the role Clackamas Web Academy plays within Oregon's public education landscape. CWA provides an important public school option for students and families seeking a blended educational experience, one that combines the flexibility of online learning with meaningful opportunities for in-person instruction, support, and community engagement. Many students and families choose CWA because a traditional school setting does not fully meet their needs, and I know that personally. My middle child spent 4 years at CWA at a time in their life when a traditional classroom setting was not allowing them to thrive. And I'm very happy and proud to say that that child graduated from high school last weekend, having fulfilled requirements in calculus and AP biology, and is continuing on to study cellular biology at the University of Oregon in the fall. And I don't think that would have happened without CWA and the flexibility that they offered for my student at the time when they needed that the most. CWA's model supports students pursuing college coursework, career pathways, employment opportunities, extracurricular activities, and individualized learning plans, all while maintaining strong relationships with educators, advisors, and peers. That combination is increasingly what Oregon families are looking for, and it is exactly the kind of public option that we should want to see thrive. The proposal before you would give CWA a permanent home here in Milwaukie and more room for the in-person instruction, tutoring, assessment, and community connection that make this blended model work. It would return an important but currently empty building to productive use that serves the community, and it would anchor a public school in the heart of the community it serves. As a legislator, I believe one of our most important responsibilities is preserving and expanding high-quality public school options for Oregon families, and CWA's application meaningfully advances that goal. I respectfully urge the commission to support Clackamas Web Academy's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, at the beginning, I did not state my city of residence, which is Happy Valley.
I believe I'm saying Bart Gagnon. Apologies if I misspelled or misspoke on your last name.
Good evening. My name is Bart Gagnon. I'm the plant manager at Dave's Killer Bread, and I live in Portland, Oregon. David already said, kind of a lot of the things that we are concerned about with this proposal. I think I could just maybe share a little bit about my experience working on International Way the last 18 years. As a plant manager at Dave's, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations at the facility, trucks coming in and out, employees coming in and out. And, just want to say again, as David said, that, we definitely fully support the mission of Clackamas Web Academy. And, it's really amazing to see all the support here tonight for it. And, we do support everything that the Web Academy stands for and does in the community. And, again, we just have some concerns about the safety of students potentially being at 5,000 International Way. 5,000 International Way sits in an active industrial corridor with round-the-clock operations. We have heavy truck traffic coming in and out of the building 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, and very limited parking and pedestrian infrastructure, at least on the east side of International Way. And we just feel like introducing children and families into this environment presents some meaningful safety risks. Again, David kind of talked about it already, but at our bakery, we send about 10 53-foot semi-tractor trailers a day in production, either receiving ingredients or sending out bread. We also receive, UPS trucks, FedEx trucks, contractors, different folks like that in and out of Mallard and our entrance on Mallard off of International Way. We have about 140 people who work at the bakery. Most all of them drive and either park on our property or park along International Way because we only have about 41 designated employee spots on our property. I can just share from personal experience, commuting down there, traffic already backs up on Harmony and 224 pretty much most weekday afternoons due to the railroad crossing and school buses going across there, usually coming out of Rao and Alder Creek. We're just concerned about adding student drop-off and pickup to the environment there would significantly increase congestion and complexity in the area. And, just one of the things that I can share with you tonight is some concerns that my employees have expressed about over the years about just pedestrian safety on International Way. There's frequent roadside activity, including heavy trucks on the eastern stretch of International Way all day, every day. Just feel like during pickup and drop off, the mix of parked vehicles, moving traffic, and children on foot, all in an area without dedicated pedestrian safety infrastructure presents significant safety challenges. One of the common complaints that I've gotten over the years from our employees is that they don't feel safe walking or biking to work a lot of times because there is no bike lane, there is no sidewalk to come to the building. The only exception obviously is the sidewalk directly in front of Bob's. And, again, I would just say that, I and Dave strongly supports, an educational investment within Milwaukie and within Clackamas County and in the community in general. But we're just concerned about some of the safety issues that this could potentially bring on to us if Clackamas Web Academy moves into Bob's. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Andrew Desenko.
Hi, my name is Andrew Desenko. I live in unincorporated Clackamas County. My mailing address is Milwaukie, though, so I've got that going for me. I I didn't come prepared to talk about anything. I don't have a piece of paper, but my kids brought them. They're learning, they're getting their social studies credits, learning about, civics. I would love it if we moved into that location. They don't have a dedicated basketball court right now. We're above 24-hour fitness, that then they walk down the stairs and do gym there. There's also no outdoor space for them to play. My son likes to play after school with his friends, just in the little green area that's out front of our current building. This is just pavement there, so it's not the best. So I just want to say that I really support it, and I know I'm supposed to be addressing you guys, but Dave's Killer Bread guys, you guys are, you need to get your piece in too. So I appreciate them coming to talk, but I definitely support it.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, are there any representatives from the Neighborhood District Association here to testify? Hearing none. We have done public. Do any commissioners have any questions for any of the speakers?
I do. I've got maybe some questions for Dave's Killer Bread representatives. Thanks for taking the time to come share your commitment to the school's mission, as well as some of the operational concerns that you have. I think many of us haven't had an opportunity to dig in deeply with what you submitted kind of late in the day. But I was curious, one of the things that you raised was kind of concerns about schools and speed restrictions. Is there anything else I know there's school zones, so based off of what you know, do you believe then this would need to be re-signed as a school zone? Or maybe that's a question for staff as well.
I'll just jump in that's something that our engineering department would need to work on, I think, and see if the state would need to step in, but that's an engineering department decision.
Okay, maybe we could try and get some clarity on that. I think one of the other things that you raised was concerns, complaints regarding air quality, noise, odors. You mentioned something specifically about potential DEQ permitting given proximity to a school. I don't know if you're prepared to elucidate on that anymore, but it was just something that caught my interest.
Sure, those weren't specific to any uses right now or to Dave's. I mean, I think most people appreciate the smell coming out of Dave's facility. It's more to just the specific uses within an industrial area and what can be there now or in the future, and whether those are conducive to being, adjacent to or in the same vicinity of a school, and what that looks like. Again, maybe not tomorrow, but 5 years from now.
Great, I think those were my initial questions.
Thanks.
No, Chair, we do have someone who has called in to the meeting, and they have raised their hand. So if it's all right, yep. I have, they just raised their hand. So I'm allowing you to talk. Your phone number is listed here. I'm not going to put it on TV. But I've given you the ability to talk. It sounds like you've muted yourself, so you'll need to unmute, and then you can testify. Go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Ferenczak. I live in Clackamas, Oregon, and I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but heard some of the comments, Dave, concerns that Dave's Killer Bread had. And currently right now at CWA, nobody rides their bikes or walks to the school. They're in a business building above 24-hour fitness. And students aren't coming just from Milwaukie. They come from everywhere around. And so there's actually just as many people, like someone stated, going families and children that were shopping at Bob's Red Mill as well at during the day, as well as eating at the restaurant. So I'm not quite sure about that concern. And kids aren't running around and they're not currently doing that. So I just wanted to address that. My daughter is currently a student and she's a freshman going to be a sophomore this fall. And she'll hardly be at the location because she's going to be an early college option student. So she'll be at Clackamas Community College most of the time. So it's not a traditional school like I think Dave's Killer Bread thinks it is. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Just to clarify, there's no one else online who is willing to speak or wanting to speak. Yes. To confirm, yes.
Sorry, thank you. Appreciate the time. I am Andrew DeSanco's wife, Felicia DeSanco. I am also in unincorporated Clackamas County, Milwaukie. I just wanted to reference the queue line, the pickup, the drop-off. CWA is not a traditional school. We don't have a line of 50 cars waiting to pick up students. We drop off my children at 9 a.m., sometimes just one of them on Tuesdays. Some of them go together on Fridays. They're there for an hour and a half. So we drop off at 9. We're there picking them up at 10:30. There's 9 students in my daughter's class for who actually show up. So at pickup time, I'm in a waiting room with about 12 parents. So 12 cars in a queue. I don't necessarily think that they're going to be in a queue as of right now. Middle school and up gets to walk upstairs above the 24-hour fitness by themselves. Everyone else has to get walked up by a parent. So we're parking. We're not in a queue line. We're not building a line in this traffic. We're not impeding with 24-hour fitness business. There's also a medical office there that shares our space as well. We don't impede with any of that. So I just wanted to clarify, there's no huge queue that lines up that would go into any of the traffic that we were talking about. It's definitely something that they've done a really good job of staggering to make sure that the kids are extremely safe. There isn't a queue that needs to happen. And it's very seamless. They've done a very good job of that. So this is not a traditional buses are lining up waiting. Parents are in a pickup drop-off line for an hour and a half waiting to pick up their kids. My friends do that with a normal school. This is definitely a hybrid in a very positive way. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to add one thing. My name is Zoe Booth. I'm actually the assistant principal at the Clackamas Web Academy. I also live in unincorporated Clackamas County. I just want to say how much I love the city of Milwaukie, and thank you so much for all of your time and attention today. And to everyone else that spoke, I just want to let you know that we get students from all over Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Washington County, and as those that know me know how much I love Milwaukie, like crazy. I get called Miss Milwaukie. And the idea of kids coming and parents coming, and then when they drop off their kids, getting to go into the city of Milwaukie and shop and see all our fantastic stores. I mean, I so appreciate what you said about Bob. When we moved here in 1982, the first place we went was, it was called Moore's Flour Mill, actually on Nafe Road. Rothy Road, right? And we went there. And so I just want to tell you, I do love the city of Milwaukie and the idea of working. And I probably am the only one person that rides my bike, so I apologize that is causing the big problem tonight. Okay. And I'll walk if you don't want me to ride my bike anymore. But I just really do, the idea of everyone getting to know the great city, I do really, that is huge for me. So thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience who is planning to speak? Thank you. All right. Are there any responses to the testimony from staff?
The only note that I would make, and I did highlight this in the staff report as well, is although it is perfectly understandable to want to draw a comparison to the prior use of the property and sort of evaluating, you know, possible impacts of the proposed school. I would say that there's not a sort of a clean place in the approval criteria to do so. So as sort of as compelling as that might be and as understandable as it is, I just want to make sure the commission in evaluating the approval criteria really are just focused on the approval criteria.
Thank you. Okay. Does the applicant have any rebuttal or any additional comments in response to the public testimony?
Can we get 3 minutes of recess, please, before we respond?
Certainly, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think Mr. Stevenson wants to go first, and I'll follow him. Thank you.
Thanks for another opportunity, oddly enough, my third, to address the Planning Commission tonight. But I've got some serious things I want to talk about because, we're making land use decisions and we need to be thoughtful about that. That's why you're all on this Planning Commission, and that's why the excellent professionals on your wings do what they do. And I went back and I read Mr. Boyer's letter, and I listened to what he had to say, and I listened to his client. And I got to tell you, I have yet to do a school project in my career where somebody, in fact, a lot of people, weren't worried about parking and traffic. And I think that all of their concerns are valid and understandable, and they're things that come up in so many projects because they can be issues. And what I didn't hear, though, is any sort of substance to that testimony other than asking questions. In other words, I'm here, and to paraphrase Mr. Boyer, he said, I want to put questions to everyone. And I understand that that is a very intuitive reaction to a potential change. Here we have a set of criteria where the policymakers of the city have determined for us what questions we need to ask and answer. And as Ryan mentioned right before we took our break, the question, the various questions of like, how could this grow? And what happens if a kid runs across the street? And where is the biking going to happen? All those are intuitive. They're not embodied in the criteria. And that might alone be enough here, but I think what really impresses me, and I use impress in the old word, like I have been impressed, with the testimony I heard from some of the community members of the school, is that this is a different type of school. This is a type of school where people are dropped off and picked up. This is not the type of school where people are biking and walking to and from their classes. This is an excellent facility because it is relatively self-contained. It has a lot of parking. As I understand it from Nick's report, there's more than adequate parking to prevent queuing issues. And as far as safety is concerned, I don't know who would be more interested in the safety of their students than the people who are running the school, including the principal you just heard from. And so I think this is a use that can occur here safely. That's what all the evidence suggests. There's a couple points that I wanted to have Nick speak to, one of which is I think, Nick, you mentioned that we have not seen a whole lot of PM or AM peak turning movements with trucks nearby. Is that true?
That's correct. Traffic counts were taken at nearby intersections in February of this year, which included truck turning movements. We denote in our traffic report, there were 0 trucks identified in the morning peak hour during the drop-off period, and there was only 7 in the afternoon pickup period, which represents a small fraction of the total traffic along Southeast International Way.
Thank you. A couple other issues that came up in the Dave's Killer Bread testimony is the question, what about, I guess, and you mentioned this, Mr. Sherman, what about the DEQ compliance? Recall that one of the conditions of approval that the school has to comply with is essentially voluntarily covenanting themselves not to sue for any sort of industrial activity that may be objectionable to one student or another. And this is a very common thing where you have a zone like this, which is kind of a mix between a heavy office and commercial zone and a heavy industrial zone and a light industrial zone. And so I think that your staff has done a remarkably good job of dealing with that particular issue. Nobody wants to be in a situation where people are moving to a nuisance, and that's why we have those systems of covenants in place. The same thing happens in other contexts like farm and forest and that sort of thing. And then whether or not this is going to be a 20-mile-per-hour zone, Given where Dave's Killer Bread is, I doubt that its trucks are traveling at 20 miles an hour past this site. But again, that's an issue for your engineers to determine. But my last note is one of procedure. And what is before you is a request from Dave's Killer Bread that we effectively continue this hearing. And the reason why they have apparently requested that is that they believe they need an additional 7 days to submit more written testimony. And that's fine, that's their right. But I want to give them the opportunity to reaffirm whether or not that's something that they really believe they need. In other words, I myself, if they're going to continue this for 7 days, am going to be eagerly awaiting a legal memo that will come in the next week. But if that's not something that they feel that they need to do, understanding that we have heard their concerns and that the criteria, I think, are well addressed, then I want to give them the opportunity to decide whether or not they would like to withdraw that request for a continuance. And if so, then I would ask that this Planning Commission deliberate and make a decision tonight. And so that's a call for the chair, Chair Gratnerik, and I am not going to step on your toes. You can invite them or not to make that affirmation, but I think in this case, given the testimony they've submitted and the generality of it, I just want to make sure that if we're going to do this again in a month and spend 3 weeks exchanging letters, that we really need to do that. And so I'm going to conclude there.
So you're thinking procedurally, Chair, do you want to rule on Mr. Stevenson's request prior to after my remarks? That was a lot of wheels turning there, I apologize.
I think one thing to keep in mind is the fact that the commission here, at least I know myself, I picked my own child up from school shortly before 4 o'clock. And I spent the exact 2 hours I had to spend with him that I normally get before these meetings and then have to come here. I wasn't able to even fully read through what Dave's Killer Bread sent, since it was 2 hours before the meeting when I'm, with my family and trying to eat dinner. So I was not given, I personally believe, a sufficient amount of time to read through. That being said, I do feel that I've heard quite a bit from the folks today. I've heard the concerns. My only thought process would be that if those individuals here on the commission felt they had enough time to process everything that was put into the record. And then also, I believe the next step would be to also see if that is something that the testimony, those folks who gave testimony, are interested in. So first, I guess I would just ask my fellow commissioners, are there other folks, and to be frank, I was under the understanding when we began this meeting that we would not be deliberating. So I just want to understand what the other commissioners.
And to clarify, it is entirely your decision, Chair, whether or not you deliberate tonight. I just feel like, based on what I've heard and the lack of new evidence that came in with that testimony, that I would like to give the folks the opportunity to tell us whether they really need an additional 7 days to provide additional testimony. If you believe that the Planning Commission needs more time to review the application, one possibility would be to close the record and then just return to deliberate.
You're
I'd
saying
second
at a
that.
later date.
Right.
So, but in order for us to do that, it would mean that the individual giving testimony
Yes,
earlier
so
would
that's
have
why
to agree. Understood.
exactly. So
Okay.
it's up to
That
them
makes
whether or
sense.
not they want to withdraw that request.
So we can give them the opportunity to withdraw that request.
Sure. But why don't we continue with your final remarks, and then we'll bring the representative from Dave's Killer Bread forward. I don't know, Mr. Boyer, if you want to come up now. I don't know do you have a feeling on that? Pardon?
We will not be withdrawing that request.
Okay.
Okay, well, that makes it
So
easy.
for the record, Mr. Boyer, on behalf of Dave's Killer Bread, is not going on their behalf to withdraw the request. So we're back to where the understanding was before the hearing started. Continue.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Garrity. Okay, just picking up a couple remarks that Mr. Stevenson mentioned. I just want to reiterate here. There's been a lot of questions asked tonight by the Daves folks, and I'm focusing because again, this is rebuttal, this is response from the applicant, so I'm not going to rehash all the stuff that our applicant team presented to you as well as all the wonderful public comments, but just responding specifically to some of the questions that Mr. Boyer posed to this commission and effectively to the applicant. Questions about compliance with standards, not necessarily alleging the standards are wrong, just stating, hey, have they looked at these standards? The answer would be, at least from the applicant's position, unequivocally yes. I think that, again, like I noted previously, staff's work with the staff report as well as the addendum was incredibly thorough. They have analyzed, in my position, all of the questions that were raised in the letter, which I did read, albeit very quickly because it was submitted so shortly before this hearing, as well as the testimony that was raised. In addition, just kind of harkening back to a comment I made earlier about just the interplay between Daves and CWA, we did have the opportunity to meet with them last week. During that meeting, they presented several more questions, all related to traffic, which we worked with Nick to respond to. The responses we gave them were comprehensive and thorough, and I imagine now that the record's held open, we will respond again with those questions. They then came and asked the same questions again in the public forum to you guys. It is their prerogative to do so, but it does feel like those have been asked and answered. And the reason I say that is because our traffic report does answer those questions. There's questions about, was the intersection with International and Harmony analyzed? The answer is unequivocally yes. Mr. Messler can speak to that. That was one of the intersections that was studied per the mandate of your own city engineer when they developed the scope for our traffic report. Questions about modality, children in the business industrial zone. Are they riding or biking to work or to school? Are they walking? The nearest residence is 0.5 miles away, so I find that unlikely. In addition, we are on the record clearly stating the modality of Clackamas Web Academy is entirely pick up and drop off. Children do not ride their bikes to school. They will not ride their bikes to school. Were this to something we need to explore through a condition, I imagine we would be happy to entertain that. But again, this is a pickup and drop off modality. All activities are on site for the reasons that Dave's raised. We're not going to let children just wander off site for many reasons, but obviously potential impacts is one of those. I think that's just another thing, and I know I'm kind of just flowing through some of the stuff, but I'm just trying to hit on the comments that were made and some of the questions you asked. Introducing children and families to the business industrial zone. Respectfully, I would posit that Bob's Red Mill, over the many years they were in operation, had already done so, because that was a place of community. That is where children and families, gathered. That is where they had community. So although I respect what Mr. Dreyer was saying about not analyzing previous uses to anticipate future impacts, I do think that is an important fact to consider when we're thinking about the interplay of children and families in an industrial zone, a use that was existing when Bob's was operating and will continue to exist while CWA is operating. I think in terms of, again, I don't want to bore you with more of the technical aspects of this, but connectivity, not enough bike lanes, that's not an approval criteria for this application. In terms of walkways, again, we've hit on that earlier. It's not a requirement to do so at that point. I think that's in 19700 says that cabins the discretion for community service uses in any zone, let alone the business industrial zone, in terms of what sort of off-site walkways and pathways need to provide. So I think that's been asked and answered in the staff report. I guess just operational characteristics. In the 99% worst case scenario environment, we would have 27 vehicles, and that analyzes all 150 students that would be coming to the site. And remember, I understand there's concerns about growth here, but these students don't all come to the site at once. They are scheduled via bell, so it is unlikely that 150 students would ever be on site at any such time. That being said, we analyzed that condition and determined that yes, we have adequate storage, mitigation, and queuing to manage that without any spillover onto International Way. Beyond that, and this is something we can follow up with in writing, but the school does not, from a structural standpoint, have the capacity to grow to the full 500 plus enrollees that are currently CWA students. So in terms of growth, it is highly unlikely that there would be some sort of uncontrolled and unplanned for growth that would then hypothetically impact existing operations in the business industrial zone. So again, these are questions, they're valid questions, but they're ones that frankly we either don't have the capacity to answer or have already answered within the application materials before you in the record. I think the last thing I'll mention is just kind of playing off that, the question of substantial evidence, right? Like Mr. Stevenson noted, if we are going to be continuing this hearing for a week or multiple weeks, we're going to need something more than questions to run off in terms of providing a meaningful response as to the approval criteria. Right now we have I don't like to throw this word around lightly, but conjecture. We have questions, we have hypotheticals, but we don't actually have any studies, reports, or evidence that there would be adverse impacts, which is one of the criteria that you need to analyze for community service use. So again, I'm all for having this discussion, but I think that we have really done our work in terms of the applicant team, in terms of the record we've developed, and I believe staff has done the same in asking and answering all the questions that were raised before you today. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you for your time.
With that, we're going to take a short break for probably 5 to 10 minutes to confer with the parties and figure out what our next schedule will be, and we'll return shortly.
On. So pursuant, thank you. Pursuant to the request from Dave's Killer Bread received at 4 p.m. this afternoon, the hearing record will remain open for a period of 7 days until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 16th, for the submittal of additional evidence, argument, or testimony. Thereafter, the record will remain open for an additional 7 days until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 23rd, for the submittal of any response to new evidence submitted by 5 p.m. on June 16th. The record will close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 23rd. The applicant will then have an additional 7 days until 5 p.m. on June 30th for the submittal of its final written argument. The continued hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 14th, which is the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting. Is 5 p.m. sharp. As we will not be moving forward with deliberations, I believe it is most appropriate to move on to the next agenda item. Are we in agreement? I would like to say thank you for all, I'm sorry, I should pause. I would like to say thank you very much for all of the testimony of those folks who have spoken today. Everyone for taking your time to be here. I know this is a long process, and I appreciate the time that you've spent and the fact that you're here today. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. At this point in the agenda, the commission will act as the Community Involvement Advisory Committee. Does anyone, including audience members, have any items to report? No. I don't believe. Anyone on the commission? All right. All right. Do commissioners have any other items for discussion? So now we will review the agenda and forecast for future meetings.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have, well, we don't have this continued hearing is not happening on the 23rd, but we do have 2 hearings on the 23rd. We have one for a new proposed vacation rental on Madison Street. And then we do have an appeal that is not tentative, the VR 2026-006 that has been appealed. That it was a type 2 variance decision that has been appealed by the Lake Road NDA. So that appeal hearing would be happening on June 23rd. It's been 7 years since we've had an appeal of a type 2 decision. So we will be researching that process one more time to make sure we remember how it's going to go. And then July 14th, of course, at this point, I believe we just have this continued hearing and then one possible work session item. So, and I would just note that June 23rd is Commissioner Edge, Joseph Edge's final meeting. I'll be touching base with him this week. He is on vacation, but I'll be touching base with him to make sure that he is available on the 23rd so we can celebrate him. Thank you.
With that information, does that mean that the July 14th meeting will be the first meeting for incoming new commissioners? Okay.
So we do have a new commissioner, Kim Travis, was appointed by the city council to take the seat that Joseph has termed out of.
Kim has previously been a planning commissioner as well, so yeah.
That's exciting. Looking forward to that.
Maybe a decade ago or so.
For the record, what is the duration between which you can reserve after you've completed your initial 8 years?
I would have to check our charter for that. Okay. I'm not sure
Just
what
curious.
that break is, but.
We can ask Kim, I'm sure she'll know. All right. Well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All motion to adjourn?
I need a second.
I'll second.
All right. Are there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye, and those opposed nay.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned.